This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com. My name is Todd DeWalt, and our mission here is to help you systematize your construction business so it becomes a source of freedom, impact, and wealth. In this episode, our Director of Customer Success, Leah Valgardson, and I break down why you need a CEO schedule. This is all about the problems that you're dealing with that a CEO schedule will solve and how to get started putting that in place. Here's what you're going to learn about. There are 3 strategies to take back control of your time. We'll talk about sanctioned procrastination and how you might be guilty of it. There are 4 things that are just robbing you of your time. You'll uncover a few myths about time management, how you can use what I call batching to wrestle control of your time back into your hands. You'll find out the person who is really to blame for your productivity issues, the connection between your calendar and anxiety, the problem with the question, hey, you staying busy? And why your team is counting on you to use your time wisely, especially with what's going on in the economy these days. Lots of good stuff here. Before we get into that conversation about the CEO schedule, here are a few resources I'd like to share with you. We know as contractors, you're always looking for ways to get the job done simpler and faster so you can spend more time working on your business rather than in your business. That's why we recommend taking a look at Hover. Hover is an easy-to-use, feature-packed solution that simplifies the process of selling and producing all your exterior projects. Trusted by thousands of home improvement professionals, from contractors to the nation's leading materials manufacturers, Hover transforms any home into an accurate, fully measured 3D model with property measurements. And we mean all the measurements with to-the-inch detail. We're talking fascia, soffit depth, linear feet of trim board, you name it. But it doesn't just give you measurements. Hover gets you faster, more accurate quotes, dependable material quantities, and places your orders with suppliers all in one place, helping home improvement professionals optimize and grow their business. Visit hover.to today or download the Hover app to learn more. Are you tired of chasing down field reports? Raken's easy-to-use software helps you connect the field to the office. That way, you get the progress updates you need without wasting hours on the job. With Raken's mobile app, field crews can share updates as they build. Everything from daily reports, time-stamped photos and notes, to time cards, checklists, and production data. All that field data is turned into a professional, branded PDF report, making it easy to see and share how a project is going. With Raken's web dashboard, the office can track projects in real time and find actionable insights to improve them. Give your field crews an app they'll actually use and get the data you need to build better projects. To learn more, go to rakenapp.com. That's RAKENAPP.com. When it comes to experiencing growth in your construction business, you have to think differently about how you run it. Because to eliminate chaos, maximize revenue, and grow your business, you can't do everything on your own, right? You eventually realize that your valuable and expensive time shouldn't be spent on tasks like bookkeeping that can be easily delegated to someone else. And this is where our friends at Belay can help. Because whether you need a US-based bookkeeper, a virtual assistant, social media manager, or website specialist, Belay has the right, highly vetted, US-based professional ready to help you. And to help you get started, Belay is offering their latest book, Delegate to Elevate, for free. In this ebook, you'll learn how to reclaim time to focus on the things only you can do by delegating, to unleash the powerful, multiplying effects of entrusting others. To claim this offer, just text the word EDGE to the number 55123 for your free copy today. That's EDGE to the number 55123. Start delegating your bookkeeping to an expert from Belay to regain your peace of mind. You'll wonder why you waited so long. And now, let's jump in and talk about your CEO schedule, some of those things that are robbing you of time, the myths that you may be believing, and most importantly, why your team is counting on you to put your CEO schedule in place. Enjoy. All right. Morning, Leah. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you, Todd?
Great. So for those of you who don't know Leah is our Director of Customer Success, years of experience with some of the largest home builders in the country, systems, training, development. So very excited to have you on the team. And so we're going to talk about a topic, and I had to apologize to some of our clients because of where we place this topic in our program. But let's talk about the CEO schedule. What do you say?
Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. So Todd, as we dive into the CEO schedule, what do you think are some of the symptoms that a business owner needs to take control of their time by implementing what we call the CEO schedule?
Yeah, some of the things that there are some pretty obvious things that we'll talk about, but then some of them are not so obvious. So I'll start with the Stephen Covey time management matrix. Maybe Dwight Eisenhower came up with it, but maybe you've seen it. If not, you can look it up. It's a 4-quadrant matrix, and there's in one quadrant there's not urgent, not important. Another quadrant is important and urgent. Another quadrant is not important, or it's important but not urgent. And you kind of get the idea. You can check that out. But one of the symptoms would be one of the things that I hear several times a week, several times a day sometimes, is business owners are spending too much time in the urgent quadrants. Either the urgent and important, or the worst is the urgent but not important. And what this looks like would be putting out fires, right? As I heard one person say, I spend too many hours a week doing damage control with clients, with customers. People who are paying them money, they're spending a lot of time trying to clean up messes. Yeah, I know this guy didn't show up over here. And yeah, I know we messed that up. And yeah, we're going to fix that. We're going to pay to fix that. So putting out those kind of fires and doing damage control. Really specifically, running out to job sites, windshield time. One of my all-time, I don't know what to call this, but the probably one of the worst uses of a construction business owner's time is picking up material for the crew. Yes. Oh, you're out of lumber? Let me drop what I'm doing and go out and pick up material. So dealing with these urgent things. So what that looks like, what it feels like, some of the exact language I hear on a regular basis is things like, we are constantly scrambling. We're constantly behind the 8 ball. We're just putting out fires. I'm running around with my hair on fire. The language is pretty consistent. What that looks like specifically is people wasting the most productive hours of their day. So most of the people I work with, their mental energy is highest in the morning, but they're wasting those most productive hours of the day. They jump in, they just open up email, they scroll through messages, they do these mindless activities at the time of the day when they should be doing deep work. And then when it's time to do something that requires some thinking, like doing an estimate or putting together a job description or creating a process, they just don't have it. They don't have enough gas in the tank to do it because they're not matching their activities with the right mental energy level. What about you? What are some of the things that you've seen with our clients who need help getting control of their time?
Yeah, very similarly. I think there's a lot of chaos and frustration built around this. People feel like they're working these long hours and they're busy, but things really aren't getting done. Nothing's getting accomplished, and that creates so much frustration. And then to your point, the scramble and the knee jerk and the putting out the fires, that just creates so much chaos, and it's exhausting. And so when they actually do have time, if they ever have the time to sit down and work on some of these things, they're just exhausted. There's no energy left. There's no brain power left. It just kind of falls to the wayside, or gets put off till tomorrow, and tomorrow really never comes.
Tomorrow, that magical place, that magical time when all the good stuff gets done. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned busy. I want to talk about myths. There are some myths, some chupacabras and Sasquatches and jackalope type myths that just don't exist. Some things that people believe in that are not true. One of those is they think that they're a call center. They think they have to be on, they have to be available and responsive at all hours. They need to be available at 4:00 in the morning. They need to take calls from clients at 7 or 8 p.m. They think they need to go out. My clients are traveling to the coast where we build homes, so I've got to meet them on Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. And they feel like they are out of control. They feel like somebody else controls their time. And, specifically with customer communication and frankly, employee communication. So you can imagine if you believe that you have to respond and have to take every call and respond as quickly as possible, it's going to be very difficult to get anything done because you're at the mercy of whoever calls or texts. And so if you truly believe that you have to be available and responsive at all times, it's going to hammer your productivity. It's going to be impossible to get deep work done.
Yeah.
Another one.
You probably know this, Todd, but when we start to do work and we get interrupted, I think the average is like 20 minutes for us to get back into a task again or back into something. So that is having those disruptions and those things that are breaking our brain power. It really does break things apart. It's not just a quick response to a text or an email.
Yeah, there's this attention residue when you switch tasks. And I did an episode several years ago called the builder schedule versus the manager schedule. So if you're building something, if someone's building something, then like out on the field, or if you're sitting in your office doing an estimate, creating a schedule, and you really need 3 or 4 hours of heads down time to do that. Well, if you get interrupted in the middle for a 5-minute phone call, you don't just lose 5 minutes. You probably lose, in some cases, you may have to go all the way back to the beginning and start over. Like, okay, let's retrace my steps and start over. And so it's not just the 5 minutes. It's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour in many cases. So understanding the difference between a manager's schedule and a creator's schedule or a builder's schedule is really important. The other one, there's this myth that I hear a lot. There's a guy I've known for 15 or 20 years. He's a project manager. And every time I see him, he asks me the same question. Staying busy? You guys busy? And I used to tell him, we're just covered up, right? This is how the typical conversation goes. Oh, dude, we're covered up, just swamped. And there's this myth that busyness is effectiveness. And if you believe, like a lot of people do, that being busy is the most important thing, you just have to run from one thing to the other, and you have to work all these hours, then you're never going to get anything done. So it's not about busyness. And in fact, some of the most effective people I've ever worked with, they don't look that busy. They don't look stressed. It's because they have control, and they're not firefighters. So if you believe the myth of busyness, then you're really going to struggle with that one. There's a guy I used to work with. One of his favorite habits was when he hardly ever showed up on the job site. He was later in years, didn't do any work on the job site unless there was a specific situation. When there was some issue, he had family members in the business, and when there was some drama in the in the business between he and one of his family members, he would go show up on a job site. And the crew was like, hey, what are you doing here? And he would just jump in and just start doing stuff and take over and hijack the crew. And it was what I called sanctioned procrastination. There was this thing he needed to deal with. So, but instead of dealing with that thing, he would go do something else that was fun. And he could justify it because like, I'm busy. I can't deal with that thing right now. And I've seen it. I'm sure I've done it. There's some tough situation that needs to be dealt with, an employee situation or a customer situation or talking to your banker, and you just go do something else to stay busy. And then, it's look at the time. It's already 4:30, 5 o'clock. It'll just have to wait. I'll get to it tomorrow. So staying busy while procrastinating things. Sometimes you can be incredibly busy, but procrastinating the important stuff. And then one I have to say that's a myth and an absolute killer, especially for a lot of contractors, is the free estimate myth. Good Lord, if you are still doing free estimates, stop immediately. Custom home builders, remodelers, general contractors, spending. If you're a small business owner and you're doing free estimates, it's just destroying your ability to get anything done. And it's causing all sorts of profit bleeds. So just think about it. If you're custom home builders, for example, will put in 20, 30, 40 hours of time into an estimate, and they'll do 2, maybe 3 of those a month. And if it doesn't turn into a contract, wow, what a gigantic waste of time. Yeah. So are there any other myths or anything else that people need to be aware of, how they may be thinking about their time that needs to change? What do you think, Leah?
Yeah, I think related to that sanctioned procrastination, there's certainly an element of avoidance and distraction. We find ways to avoid certain things that we don't necessarily want to deal with, or we accept things that distract us from stuff that maybe we don't want to work on. But the reality is, to move your business forward, you have to. And whether that means you yourself are doing it in these blocks of time that you're setting aside, or you're finding someone to help you with it, things need to happen to move your business forward. It's kind of, I just have this visual of jumping into a cold pool. It's a lot harder to step in step by step and go slowly into a cold pool. It's much easier to just jump in and get it done. So very similarly on some of these things that we procrastinate about, or that we avoid, or we try to find things to distract us, it's much easier to just jump in. And part of what can help with that is having these blocks of time set aside and being very organized with our schedules.
Yeah. So if we chase this down the rabbit hole, we have procrastination. And what I found is procrastination can be a form of perfectionism. If you get a couple of layers below procrastination there and avoidance, there's perfectionism, which is, I'm afraid it's not going to be perfect, so I'm not even going to start. Mm-hmm. Then there's fear of what if it doesn't work, or what if I try it and it fails, or what if, all of these fears. So maybe if you really pull the curtain back behind some of the time management root causes, poor time management root causes, it comes down to like things like, these are psychological issues. They're fears and limiting beliefs and inner critic type stuff. It's the story we tell ourselves. So it's maybe the most important thing is to realize the problem is not out there, and the solutions are not all out there. Maybe that could be another myth, is thinking, well, it's these employees are keeping me busy. I can't get anything done because of them. These customers are keeping me busy. These subcontractors, my kids, my spouse, the problem's out there. All of these people surrounded by idiots who don't respect my time. Then if that's what you believe, then the first thing you need to realize is you're probably the problem. That's probably the case with most problems, if we're being honest, is you're probably the problem.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So in our work with construction business owners, we've seen some ripple effects on companies. Obviously, there are direct effects on the business owner, but we've seen some ripple effects on companies and maybe even families when the owner's schedule is out of control, when they don't have this CEO schedule dialed in. What are some of those ripple effects that you've seen?
Probably the most obvious thing is a business owner working in their business and not on it. You've mentioned a couple of stories where, they show up on the job site and they put on the belt and they're working in their business and they're not working on it. And that's fine if that's the stage of your business right now. But if you genuinely and truly want to grow your business and you want to be a CEO, that's not your place. As a CEO, you need to be working on your business and there needs to be time for that, which ultimately that means that leads to lack of progress and growth for your company. If you're not able to have the time and the capacity to work on the business. And then, of course, there's your team. It really affects your team. If you, as the leader of the company and as the CEO of the company, can't organize your time and be very intentional about how you're using your time, it's pretty hard to ask your team to do the same thing. So it really is a ripple effect. You're going to notice that your team is not so organized. There's a lot of chaos within your team. There's a lot of putting out fires within your team as well. It really is a top-down ripple effect. And then, of course, the lack of follow through and implementation. There's all these big ideas or maybe even a list of things that you want to do for your business, but the reality of getting to it and tying things up and making things happen, it just doesn't happen because there hasn't been intentional time set aside to do so. And then, of course, and we see this all the time, Todd, we hear a lot of our clients as they come to us say, well, everything's in my head. And that is ultimately probably one of the biggest stressors, I think, for a CEO is you do have everything in your head, which means you have the phone ringing 24/7, not only from your customers, but your employees, your suppliers, everybody is going to be calling you because you know everything. And that's the beauty of having these CEO blocks of time set aside as you're really working on your business. You're creating so many of these things that will take you out of the business and will get everything out of your head and into a process and into a system that everybody can understand and follow. And you're no longer the only person who's putting out fires and answering all the questions.
Yeah. I've been reading the book, The E-Myth, and maybe one of the ripple effects, one of the side effects of this is being stuck in the technician role, as Michael Gerber calls it, the technician who's working in the business, doing the work of the business. And the CEO or the entrepreneur role, according to Michael Gerber, has a CEO schedule in place and they have processes and systems in place. So the company, the people run the business, and not everything runs through them. I was just reading something, doing research on a webinar that I'm going to put together on how to recession-proof your business. And I saw something interesting about when it comes to time management for the CEO. And I'll just read a little blurb here. In times of crisis, business leaders must steer the ship. They have to be prepared to put out fires, make tough decisions, and plan strategically for the future based on the changing landscape of today. That sounds familiar, right? Changing landscape. Here we are. Potential recession looming, interest rates, inflation, Russia, fuel prices, changing landscape. It's impossible to complete those necessary high-level tasks if your schedule is filled with productivity-stealing mid-level tasks. If you're preparing for a recession or in a recession now, it's time to start delegating. As a leader, your time is one of your business's most valuable resources. Let me say that again. As a leader, your time is one of your business most valuable resources. Make sure you reserve it for the tasks that will deliver the biggest positive impact on your small business. So I did several episodes talking about how your time as a construction business owner is worth $1,000 an hour. And if you're doing something that somebody else that can do for less than $1,000 an hour, then you're getting hit with opportunity cost. So it's time to start. Maybe that's another myth is, it's just better that I do it myself. I can't afford to pay somebody $50 an hour, $75 an hour to do my bookkeeping. Like, you can't afford not to. Your time is worth $1,000 an hour. You need to be out there doing the things that only you can do. Yeah. So some interesting myths there and ripple effects that people need to understand.
Yeah, those are really valuable things, Todd, everything that you're saying, and especially with the changing landscape that we have right now. I think it's always an important thing, but probably now more than ever. And so I'm curious, can we talk about some strategies that people can use to take control of their lives and to get their CEO schedule established?
Yes. So there are a few things we can do. Number one, my favorite strategy can be summed up in a quote from the great management guru, Peter Drucker, who said, "There is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all." So let me say that again. In case you're driving, you're like, what was that? There is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. So what that means is when something comes up, the first question is typically, how am I going to do this? When am I going to find time to do this? Like, oh, there's a good idea. Or here's this thing I should do. When am I going to do it? The answer should be, is this necessary? Is this necessary? Should I even do this? A couple of examples. There's no statute of limitations or anything here, but several years ago, I was running large projects for a real estate developer. And when I came in, I inherited this incredibly clunky monthly report. This was a $20 million project. And this report took like 4 hours to put together. Same information in multiple places, 25 page report that needed to be done on each project each month. So I did this for probably a year. I don't know how many hours I spent putting these reports together. And then this new project came along, and I had a hunch that nobody was actually looking at these reports. So I did an experiment. When the project started, I didn't do any reports. And after a few months, nobody asked about the reports. So this project was probably 12 or 15 months long, and I never did a report, and nobody ever asked. So apparently it wasn't that valuable. So there I was doing efficiently that which did not need to be done at all. It wasn't solving a problem. So if you're wondering, do I need to do this? One of the things you can do is just stop and see if anybody asks. And if they do say, hey, what happened to this report? Or where's this thing that I thought you were going to do? Then you can apologize and say, oh yeah, sorry about that. I'll take care of that. But it's very possible you could be like me and get back 4 hours or 4 to 8 hours a month of time that was being wasted. Then another example, I spent a couple of days with a builder in Virginia last year, and they were building 40 or 50 homes a year. And we're talking through the process, designing their process. And somebody said something about, what about the electrical walkthrough? And everybody rolled their eyes like, oh, the electrical walkthroughs, these things suck. They're time killers. So I said, tell me about this electrical walkthrough. We go out to the house and we walk through at the framing stage, and people we're there to look at light fixture locations and switches and outlets, but it turns into this Pandora's box of everything. And they take like 4 hours, and it's just sucks the life out of us. And I said, why are you doing this? And they all looked at each other like, why are we doing these? And they just eliminated them and put in a different step. And instead of doing this walkthrough that was sucking the life out of the whole team, they just stopped doing it. So there's nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. So elimination in a nutshell, eliminate those things. And then
remind me a little bit of Simon Sinek's The Question About Why. Why are you doing something? Yeah. What is your why? And I think that's an important question, because we often get stuck in this like, well, I think I'm supposed to do this, or this is how it's always been done, but that isn't always necessary. So asking that question as you're figuring out what those tasks are and the things that are important to you. Again, going back to that matrix that we talked about at the beginning, why? Why are we doing this? And is it necessary?
Yeah. What problem are we solving here? Yeah, we could do it. But what problem are we solving? What value is this providing? And then just eliminate the low value activities. It's amazing how much time you can get back.
Absolutely.
So then the next strategy, imagine this. Imagine you drive up to a job site, you're a custom home builder, right? You've hired this framing crew, fantastic framing crew, and they're building this stick framed roof, right? Cutting rafters. And you pull up and you see this carpenter. He's standing at the saw station, cuts one rafter, carries it up the ladder onto the roof, nails it off, and then climbs back down the ladder, goes to the saw station again, cuts one more rafter, and climbs up on the roof. You would be like, what is this guy doing? But cutting one raft, what the hell are you doing? You would, anybody who's ever done this would cut all of the rafters at one time, set up their jig, get their template, mark all the rafters, cut all the rafters, and then take them all up in a bundle and then start building. Well, it's the same thing with your time. When you answer a text message as soon as it comes in, or you keep your email open and you bounce from an estimate, you're working on an estimate. Oh, there's an email. I should respond to this email. Oh, there's a text message. Oh, my phone's ringing. Better answer that. Oh, what's that? You got a question? Somebody walks into your office. You're just bouncing from one task to the next. And it is impossible to get anything meaningful done by just bouncing around. So the strategy is batching, not batshit. I've had that people like, what do you mean batshit? Like, no, batching. Okay.
Very different things.
Two very different terms. Batching it's grouping tasks together so you do them all at once instead of switching between tasks that take place in different programs or different areas, right? So a good cut man or cut woman on a framing crew is going to batch. They're going to mark and cut a batch of rafters at one time. And you want to do the same thing. So what can you apply batching to? Email, phone calls, meetings. You can set up your schedule so that customer meetings happen on certain days or at certain afternoons. Could be customer communication. Instead of saying, you know what, we're going to over communicate with our customers and we're just going to be available. And we're going to guarantee a 20-minute response. You have a question? We're here. We got it. Don't do that. Batch your communication with your customers. Set the expectation that they're going to hear from you at certain intervals. Maybe it's once a week. You're going to send them an update. Maybe it's every day, but take control and communicate with your customers at certain times. Same thing with your team. If you have, I've talked with people and asked them, so how many times I've spoken with lead carpenters and like, so Andrew, how many times are you calling your boss? Andrew kind of dropped his head and look at his phone. It looks like I called him 15 times today.
Oh,
15 times. Really? Like, do you think he has anything else to do than sit and answer your calls? Yeah, you're probably right. So batching, set aside certain times each day when you're going to talk to your team. Have a morning check-in, afternoon check-in, but batch your communication and tell people we're going to talk at these certain times unless it's an emergency, right? So that's how you can batch things. Invoice approvals, just about any processing of information can be batched. Just about any activity can be batched. Job site visits, sales meetings, looking at your financials should be scheduled and batched at certain times. What about you? What is a strategy that you found to be successful?
Well, one of the things that we talk to our clients about in creating a CEO schedule is, like you mentioned, it's blocking out times and batching those things that we do. Being very aware of how your schedule looks and what makes the most sense for you when you start to create a CEO schedule is really important. And there's a few things in there that I would mention. You had talked about how many of us have the mental capacity earlier in the day versus later. That's not the case for everyone, but being very aware of what makes sense for you. When do you do your best work? When are you most creative? When can you dive in deep and do something? Now, just a couple of things to mention, especially in construction. Usually Mondays and Fridays are not good days for these types of work sessions because you have a lot going on a Monday and you're wrapping things up on Friday. So blocking out time on your CEO schedule for what we call deep work time. And what deep work time is when you're really working on your business. So that might be putting in or creating systems and processes. That might be job descriptions, that might be invoicing. It's all these things that we've already talked about, but it's working on your business and it's chunking out times that you're doing that. And beyond figuring out what that looks like, you're now protecting those times. And how do you protect that? A few things. Number one, let your team know. If you have that blocked out on your calendar, and some of the things many of our clients have done is they've shared their calendar with their team. So everyone on their team knows that when I'm working on my CEO schedule, you don't knock, you don't call, you don't text. And everybody protects that time. And you as the CEO needs to be the first one to protect that time. So being very diligent in these 2 hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I am not available and you're not. Pending an emergency, of course. But part of what you can do to protect that is turn off your notifications, have your phone face down or even off, turn off your email, block out these times and protect them and get really involved and really just go deep in getting the work done. So those are a few things that I would mention. And using your calendar. This is huge. I think every single one of us now knows the value of having a calendar and knows how important it is to have things listed out on there. I know for me and probably for you, Todd, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen. So I will use my calendar all the time. And that's appointments, that's blocking out time for myself. It's getting really specific on when I do the best work and how I can do the best work. Specifically with our SYCB group, there are times every week that I've blocked out that I will have appointments with those folks. I don't take them in any other time because I need to be in control of my schedule, just like everybody else on this who's listening to this needs to be in control. So using your calendar is number one. And number two is using something like Calendly or Acuity, some of these really cool tools where people can have access to your calendar and see when you're available and can just schedule things with you. So there's not all this going back and forth. It eliminates so much time. It eliminates so much frustration and chaos when we can be in control. And I think that's maybe one of the biggest things to mention here too, is be in control of that. You're the CEO. You get to be in control of that schedule. You, of course, have a lot of outside sources that will encourage or that will influence that schedule. But at the end of the day, it's yours. So own it and protect it and make sure that you're using that calendar and letting your team know. So everybody is not only learning from your example, but they're also, okay, Todd is not available for these hours, and I'm going to respect that.
Yeah. And those deep work sessions really need to be treated like a meeting. If you had an important client meeting, you wouldn't take phone calls from anyone else. You wouldn't check email. You wouldn't allow somebody just to walk in and interrupt it. So it's really about how you think about your time. And when you look at your time and you really believe that statement, I'll read it again. If you believe that as a leader, your time is one of your business's most valuable resources, then you'll treat it as such. And one of my favorite things, definitely turn off notifications, leave the phone somewhere else, put it in do not disturb mode. I used to, when I worked in an office with other people, I needed to go somewhere else. I needed to go to a library. Sometimes I would do deep work at a place that just happened to have a bourbon bar nearby if I wanted to incentivize myself for an afternoon of deep work, whatever you got to do, right? You know, we're all about incentives. But yeah, sometimes it means going somewhere else and being away from distractions, being away from home, And it's about the environment. Yeah. Okay. So we have talked about some of those myths and strategies. What are some of the positive side effects, the positive ripple effects that you've seen from having a CEO schedule in place for yourself personally, and then also for our clients?
I think before I fully answer that question, Todd, I think I want to just mention that the CEO schedule and having that in place is so foundational to your success personally as a CEO, to your employees' success, to your company's success, because this is really what will truly move the needle. That's a term that we often use here at Construction Leading Edge. But without having this time set aside and being very intentional about this time, work just doesn't move forward. And so this is extremely foundational. And in fact, you had mentioned this earlier, but we did move the CEO schedule portion up in our Systematize Your Construction Business group coaching program because it's so foundational. We are getting now, our clients get that right up front before they even start the program, to get them thinking about this and thinking, okay, well, when am I going to set aside time to work on my business? It's just extremely foundational. And so some of the positive side effects, first and foremost, you're organized. When you have this written out and you have it on a schedule and you're being very intentional about it and you're protecting those times, your days are organized and you're able to get so much more done. It eliminates all of that chaos. It eliminates all of that frustration that is so common, I think, so common in construction, but it doesn't need to be. And that's, I think, the whole point of this is it doesn't need to be. And you're able to actually get things done. When you have those times set aside, and by the way, your CEO schedule overall, it typically looks about the same week to week. So, for example, I mentioned that I will do calls with clients on a couple of days a week. I also am creating content on other days of the week. I have specific calls set aside on certain days of the week. That doesn't really change necessarily, but when I look week to week at what needs to get done and what are some of the most important things on my list and my goals for that week, those get plugged in to those deep work sessions. So having a very good calendar in place and a really great schedule in place, and then plugging in what needs to get done that week is important. That's how things will be organized and how things will move forward. And just some of the results, I guess, is maybe a good word that we've seen with some of our clients. Just from this last group coaching program, we have had a couple of our clients who have blocked out specific days, and that's all they do on that day is they work on their business. It's CEO Wednesday, I think is one of them. One of them called it CEO Wednesday. Another one, he's completely done with the program, but has since reached back out to me and said, okay, here's my schedule. Now I'm getting serious about this because I have all these tools. I have all this knowledge that you've shown me, and I want to make it happen. So here's my schedule, and I'm going to stick to it this time. It's in sticking to that, and it's being very intentional, and it's in protecting that schedule that things move forward. And so those are just a couple of examples of some guys who've been in our program and who've worked through that. And we've also, another example of another client, he also has the CEO schedule, and he's very intentional about it, but he's tied in some goals with that. And they're specifically tied to reaching out to people for sales and to build his business and grow his business. And he hit those goals for every single week for the quarter and has multiple connections now that he wouldn't have had otherwise if he hadn't had those blocks of time and hadn't had that specific goal tied to those blocks of time.
Yeah. I've seen one of our clients, Andy, who has said things like, I've done more work on my business in the last 90 days than I did in the previous 15 to 18 years. And a big part of that is CEO schedule, blocking out an entire day a week to work on the business. Michael is another one of our clients who set a sales target and blocked out time, actually had some sales target, backed it into some activity goals. I will make X number of calls per week. And then that landed on the calendar. It landed on a deep work session. So like a goal or a to-do list, if you really wanted to show up and convert it into reality, it needs to show up on your calendar. And then you actually just have to do it, right?
Yes.
Ultimately, it comes down to you just have to do it. You just have to fight off procrastination and these limiting beliefs and avoidance and fear of success, fear of failure, all of the stuff going on in your head, and you just have to do it. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, is you can have all the strategies in the world, but you just have to do it. And what we found is accountability is a big part of that. So I apologized to our clients who went through the SYCB program, and like realized we rolled out the CEO schedule portion of the content later on in the program. And they said, look, we needed this. One guy specifically said, I needed this from day one. I needed this at the very beginning because I needed time. What I needed was time to implement this stuff. So we have since shifted it to the very beginning. So when you join the Systematize Your Construction Business program, one of the first things is going to be getting your CEO schedule in place so that you create time. I have a statement about what the CEO schedule is. It's a little crude, so I'm not going to share that on the podcast in case we have mixed company. So, all right. So we've talked about strategies. We've talked about like what the CEO schedule is, blocking out time, how to do it. But what does having a good CEO schedule mean to a busy construction business owner? Like, how is their life going to be different when they have this in place? How will it feel different? But what does it really mean to them?
Oh my goodness. There's so many benefits to having a CEO schedule. Obviously, you get more time back. When you have time really organized, it eliminates that frustration, eliminates that chaos. You have very specific blocks of time that you're doing things, you're moving things forward. You're no longer being pulled in multiple directions and putting out fires. So your time gets returned to you because you're owning your time. I think that's the biggest part of this. You're controlling and you're owning it instead of it being taken from you. So that's one of them. You're organized. You don't feel so much of that chaos and frustration. You have a little bit better hold on your business overall because you have been, you've organized that time out and you've been intentional about that. Less chaos, less fires. We've already mentioned that. And it also allows you time to shift your business. When you have these blocks of time, that's when you're creating processes. We've mentioned some of these things too. You're creating processes. You're spending more time with your employees, and you're helping to grow them and to enhance them and create their leadership for them as well. You're experiencing, you're creating something that is better for your customers overall as well. It just benefits everything and everyone. And as I mentioned earlier, when you're doing this very specifically as a CEO, your people start to notice that, and they can start to chunk out their time as well. They're more productive. It just has this ripple effect that's a positive thing all the way around. And I think, Todd, you can probably speak to this a little bit more than I can because I've just recently started to work with this client of ours, but Manish has some great success in using his CEO schedule and in shifting his business. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Interesting story. So when Manish Cartier and I started working together a little over a year ago, and you can listen to his interview. I don't remember the episode number, but I think the title is Upside Down Goal Setting. Fascinating interview. Brilliant guy. When we started working together, like this is the before and after. Before, he said things like, I am working on the job site with tools on. I'm working weekends. I'm getting up at 4:00 in the morning and working till 6:00 at night. And I'm not interested in growing the business, period. That's the before. After, now he has grown the business. He's put these systems in place. He's spending 10 to 20 hours a week of CEO schedule time. And he sent me an email recently and said, my business now will soon run with about 6 to 8 hours a week of my involvement. This is all your fault. And I didn't take all.
That's a good fault to own.
Yeah. Typically, I don't like taking blame, but he takes most of the blame because he was such a good implementer. But it really was about doing what we talked about, putting the CEO schedule in place, delegating, understanding how valuable his time was. Also, some of the other things that are part of the systematize your construction business, creating your accountability chart, nailing the handoff, truly systematizing your business. And that's what it was for him in a relatively short amount of time. And the financial results have been very positive as well. But going from being out of control, working on the business or in the business all the time, to having a very successful business that runs with 6 to 8 hours of his time a week. That's what it can look like.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, it creates peace of mind and ultimately a quality of life that you really want. Most of us don't start businesses to be in chaos and frustration and running around like crazy. We do it because we want a quality of life and we want freedom. We want flexibility. And this allows that. When you're really organized, you're in that control. You don't have that anxiety and you have greater peace of mind, which ultimately you have a quality of life, which is what you really want.
Yeah. And I think what it looks like, what I've heard people say is, I sleep better at night. I have peace of mind. I'm present at home now because I know I have that covered. If this thought pops up, ooh, what about that person's estimate? Ooh, what about that invoice? Like, I got it covered. I'm going to review that invoice when I do my invoice approvals on this date at this time. I'm going to do that estimate. It's on the schedule. It's part of this deep work session. So control. And what I found is people who are stressed feel out of control. They lack agency. They don't have autonomy. They feel like they're out of control. I can feel it. I hate it when I'm out of control. I hate it when something pops up on my calendar and I have to react to something. And I think most humans are the same way. We feel stress when we are out of control. Yeah. All right. So good stuff. So for those of you listening, if you own a construction business or you plan to, then there are a few crucial systems that you have to have in place. This is based on the work that I've been doing with construction business owners for the past 5 or 6 years. Here are the systems you need to put in place. All right. You need to have your CEO schedule dialed in. You need to control your time. You need to have a clear design for your company in the future in the form of an accountability chart. You need to have a process in place to nail the handoff from the office to the field. Those few systems right there are lead dominoes that will eliminate the vast majority of the chaos in your business and put you in a place where you're in control of your time, in control of your team, in control of your processes. It's going to have a positive impact on your life, your time, your family's life, your team, and your bottom line. So if those things resonate with you, here are 2 resources that will help you. Number 1 is go watch our free training workshop. Get out of your business, how to make it run without you this year. This is not about how to sell your business. This is how do you get out of your business to one degree or the other? Do you want to get out of the field? Do you want to take off all of the hats that you're wearing and build a team? Do you want to step away from the business? Maybe it is that you want to get away from your business. You want to sell it and completely get out of it. But if you want to learn a bit more about the accountability chart, nailing the handoff, and these systems, how you can systematize your business, go to constructionleadingedge.com/get out. constructionleadingedge.com/GETOUT. Watch that free training. And then if you'd like to apply to work with Leah and me in the Systematize Your Construction Business program to get our help, detailed help, proven strategies, and the layers of accountability you need to get this stuff to show up, then you can apply to work with us over at constructionleadingedge.com/apply, APPLY. All right. Good stuff, Leah. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for everything you do here for our clients. Thanks for being our Director of Customer Success. And we will talk soon. Hey, thanks so much for listening. I have one challenge and one request for you before you go. Here's the challenge. What is your 5-minute action item from this podcast? In other words, what is one thing you want to implement in your business or on your projects that will take you 5 minutes or less? My challenge for you is to create an action item as soon as this podcast is over and do it. Send yourself a text, send yourself an email, put it in your planner, write it down in your unicorn journal, whatever it is, but take action on something from this podcast episode so you get some real value from it. Now, here's the request. If this podcast has been valuable to you, please leave a rating and a review. Here's how to leave a review on Apple Podcasts on your iOS device. Number 1, open up the Apple Podcast app. Number 2, go to the icons at the bottom of the screen and choose search. Search for this show, Construction Leading Edge. Be sure to click on the show, not the episode. Then scroll all the way down to ratings and reviews, and finally click on write a review. These instructions will also be in the show notes. If you could leave a rating and a review, that would mean a lot to me, and it also helps get the word out there to other folks. And don't forget, if you want to get out of your business and make it run without you this year, go watch my free online training workshop at constructionleadingedge.com/get out. That's constructionleadingedge.com/GETOUT. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Todd DeWalt. I'll see you next time. Remember, every project starts in the field, and Raken's field-friendly software makes documentation easy. With Raken's mobile app, crews can document progress on the go, and you can track everything in real time right from the office. So, give your field crews an app they'll actually use and stay on top of all your projects. To learn more, go to rakenapp.com. That's RAKENAPP.com. Home improvement is a big deal for everyone involved, but sometimes projects get off to the wrong start and the margin of error can be costly. Thanks to Hover, the home improvement experience becomes more simple, efficient, and transparent. Accurate measurements, collaborative design tools, and dependable estimates are all ways Hover helps you serve your customers better and improve your operations to grow your business. For more information, visit hover.to or download the free Hover app today. As I mentioned at the top of the podcast, our sponsor, Belay, is offering a free download of their latest book, Delegate to Elevate. In it, you'll learn how to reclaim time to focus on the things only you can do by delegating to unleash the powerful multiplying effects of entrusting others. Just text the word EDGE to the number 55123 for your free copy today. That's EDGE to the number 55123. In no time, you'll be back to doing what only you can do, growing your business.